Good morning, everyone. A good day, or whatever time of day it is for you. I'm Shannon MacArthur, and also known as Sunlight Sparkling on the Waters. It is my pleasure today to come into the After Chat space. Thank you, Stan Pokras. I get to welcome Jude Abrams of Welcoming Whales. This is such a pleasure because Jude is a friend of mine, and we've never met. It's one of these online experiences, and we've had a lovely friendship with a group of, we call ourselves the Riser Sisters, and we met when we were in an online course provided by Scylla Elworthy, Leadership Jumpstart for, yeah, I can't remember the whole, and maybe Jude, you can remember it.
Rising Women Leadership Jumpstart.
That's right. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. I need you. We're here to talk about these two old farts out on a sailboat. Come on and tell us.
Is that an invitation, Shannon?
That is more than an invitation. This is your place. Let us dive in together.
All right. Well, first I want to express my gratitude for everyone here and for all of the beings and their ancestors who live on the land that I am privileged enough to live on and share, and for the wonderful stewardship of the Tla'amin, Comox, and Klahoose people who have lived here from time immemorial, all the beings who live in the Salish Sea, which is an amazing body of water between Vancouver Island and the British Columbia mainland. And I'm inviting the ancestors of all those beings, where there used to be 10 times the people on the water in their canoes. There were 10 times the whales. There were basking sharks. There were sea otters. They're no longer here because we killed them all. So I'm inviting the spirits of their ancestors and anyone else, and the spirits of all of our ancestors to come and meet with theirs and have a delightful time together.
Thank you so much, Jude. I'm in the traditional lands of the Secwepemc here on the confluence of the North and South Thompson Rivers. And it is my great pleasure to be a part of the land here, although I am a traveler. And I look forward to traveling down once again to the coast where I spent 35 years. And I never got to meet a whale. And the fact that you have, and we've met online, I mean, this is beautiful weaving from my perspective. So thank you so much.
You never met a whale when you were here, not a humpback whale, because they weren't here. They started to come back. And this is how they drew me into their web. They used to, occasionally we'd see one passing by in this area where I live, Lund now, which is the Sunshine Coast, the upper Sunshine Coast. And they'd pass by, but they didn't stay. And then in 2015, we noticed that some were staying, and it's increased every year. And this year there are so many whales out there feeding and socializing and doing their whale thing. It's wonderful. There's also the dolphins who started to come back. There weren't many Pacific white-sided dolphins around here. So even though the southern resident orcas are having problems, and that's a real concern, orcas are very, very conservative in a way in their culture, because they have a food that they like and a culture that they like, and they don't associate with other orcas who don't share that culture. It's quite interesting because there's mammal-eating orcas here. They eat seals and sea lions and dolphins and porpoises, and they've really increased in the last, since I've been here. Well, in the last maybe decade. And there's the northern resident orcas who eat fish, and they're doing pretty well. The southern resident orcas like Chinook, and they they're not really open to changing their diet. It's quite interesting. So we'll see what happens with them. Of course, there's so much that humans are responsible for. And that's a whole other topic to get into, of how we manage our human activities to leave space for the other beings, and to ensure that they can follow their own destiny, follow their own path, and they're not controlled by us or managed by us. So the two old farts. Yes. The other part of this is, and this is kind of the humorous part for me, is that there were, maybe I should show you a few photos here.
I'm excited to see pictures. That's wonderful.
Well, there's not many pictures because I didn't have that much time to put things together last night. Oops.
Well, you've got interesting things going on in your life.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of things going on for sure. But what I really wanted to talk with people about and get their take on is, can you see that?
Yes, two old farts. I see them.
Okay, there's the two old farts. Okay, this is my partner and I, and this was taken on the sailboat, of course. We had a dream. We did a course in intuitive communication and spirit tracking in 2013 with a wonderful man who was trained by Tom Brown Jr., who was trained by Stalking Wolf, and he's an intuitive tracker. And Anna Breitenbach, who many of you might know from the film The Animal Communicator. And she's an intuitive communicator. And we did this course in 2013. And then we started to notice the whales coming back, the humpback whales coming back to our area. So since then, we've been trying to communicate telepathically and in any other way we can. And that has been a very interesting journey and very humbling. So here we are on the little old sailboat. I am holding a didgeridoo, which I love to. It's actually a plastic PVC pipe because I wouldn't use a ceremonial didgeridoo. And that I take out and play for the whales. And sometimes they're interested. Sometimes they come around and they circle the boat and they listen. Other times there's whales who are not interested at all. What the really humbling thing about working with the whales is they completely do their own thing. This is what happens most of the time. This is called waiting for whales. Yes. And that's what we do most of the time for hours and hours and hours and hours. I want to disabuse people of the romantic idea that you go out there, and what some animal communicators convey is that the whales are here for us. They are here to help us evolve. They are here because humans are the center of the universe. This is still waiting for whales. This is in November, where we waited a whole week for whales in the rain. It was too wet for whales. And this is what goes on most of the time in the And then we get this. This is Spotlight and her calf. And this is fantastic. They were playing together. And I wish I could show you the video, but Zoom is not a good platform to show videos on. I thought it might not work on this platform because it's data heavy to show a video, especially a high definition video.
You have these things on your website, don't you?
Yes, and the website is welcomingwhales.com. We'll get to that. Here's a whale. This is behavior. This is something that whales do a lot. These where they slap the water with their tails, and this can mean that hello. It can mean piss off. It can mean that they're fishing and they are sending a concussive vibration through the water to herd the fish. So there's a lot of different meanings for tail lobbing. If you hear this under the water, because I have a hydrophone and I can hear the sound under the water, which travels 4.5 times as fast as sound in air. And it's amazing to hear them breaching or tail lobbing. This is Big Mama's baby from last year. And he was so active. He was just playing all around her. Big Mama was the first humpback whale to come back to the Salish Sea in 1997. And she brought her family every year. So she brings, whenever she has a baby, which is probably every couple of years or every 3 years, those babies she'll bring to the Salish Sea, and then they keep coming back. So all the whales in the Salish Sea are part of families. This is something that scientists really don't know yet, is their social organization. But we've noticed that because we've got to know individual whales, that, a lot of them are brothers and sisters. They're all friends, they all know each other, and they're all communicating. And that's what we want to learn about is, their language, their culture. It's just been amazing to be with them. This is called a peduncle throw. And this is where half the whale comes out of the water. And this is only half a whale. They are pretty big. Our sailboat is 27 feet. And these whales can be, 40, 50 feet. Well, 40, 45 maybe. And the females are bigger. Wow. And this is another thing that whales love to do, is to play with other beings. So this is a humpback whale playing with sea lions. And we've seen this a lot, where the sea lions will come and they'll pester the whales when they're sleeping. And the whales are just so mellow. They could, with one tail, you saw that peduncle throw, with one tail smash, they could take out a whole bunch of sea lions, and they never do. They're really tolerant. They bugle and they complain, but then they play. And they'll also play with dolphins. And they will also protect the sea lions and dolphins and porpoises from the mammal-eating orcas. Humpbacks do not have any love for mammal-eating orcas. The residents, they get along with fine, the fish eaters, but the mammal-eating orcas and the humpbacks are very respectful of each other. They mostly stay away from each other, although some mammal-eating orcas have attacked a humpback whale, even an adult, mostly babies.
I heard that recently, yeah.
They will do that. This is one thing that's really, we want to be romantic about nature. I mean, certainly Terry and I had all these romantic ideas of the whales, befriending these whales, and they would come up to the boat and they would say hi, and we would have these relationships. In 8 years, that hasn't happened. They are their own beings. They have their own agenda. When they come up to the Salish Sea, they're here to feed mostly. And they do come by to say hello sometimes, but they don't hang around much. And the most wonderful times we've had with them is when they come and they sleep around the boat. And the sound of their breathing is just so amazing. And they have, but you have to be very careful when they're sleeping, because they call it logging, because they just look like a log in the water, and they sleep under the surface, and they don't have, the blow barely comes above the water. So it's easy to miss them, and it's easy for speedboats and bigger boats to run over them, like what happened to kelp creature, just KC. See this split dorsal fin? That's from a propeller. This is from a propeller. And you can't really see these here. This is Lucky because all these striations on Lucky's tail are from orcas. That's mammal eating orcas. Wow. This is Zed, who we just saw when we were out a couple of weeks ago. And this fluke of Zed's could have been bitten off by an orca, but because it's so sheer here, it might have been a propeller as well. We've also seen a whale when we were in Mexico that had no tail.
Wow.
That whale swam all the way from Alaska to Mexico with no tail. These are amazingly awesome, strong, magnificent, all muscle. I've been in the water when they've been breaching, when one was breaching, and that's on the website. And seeing them from the water level, they're all muscle. It's very awesome to be in the water with them. This is a basking shark. And these are wonderful beings who eat plankton, and they're the, next to the whale shark, they're the largest fish in the sea. We don't have them in the Salish Sea anymore because our Department of Fisheries put huge cutting knives on the front of their boats and killed them all because they were getting entangled in the fishermen's nets. And so the fishermen considered them pests. In fact, our Department of Fisheries had a bounty on everything. This was up until the 60s, to the late 60s. They had a bounty on mergansers, on eagles, on any being who could possibly compete for fish in the Salish Sea with the fishermen. This is how stupid we were. We're getting a little bit better, but not much. Sea otters, they used to live here too. And of course, they were all killed from this area by the Russians. And that was at the beginning of the 20th century for their really thick coat. Yeah, for their fur. They are starting to come back on, but not here yet.
I was at Peggy's Cove on Vancouver Island, must have been 15 years ago. And I saw a mama teaching her babies how to swim. They were on the float out in the ocean, and she was rolling them off the float into the water. And I was so charmed. Oh, they were beautiful.
And they also keep the sea urchins in check. The urchins are those, and they look like a flower, but spiky. And they could be dark purple or magenta. And they eat all of the seaweed. They eat the bottom kelp. And that makes urchin deserts. And the sea otters, that's their favorite food. Also the sunflower, also the sunflower stars, which if you've noticed, if you're on the coast, got killed by the wasting disease about 5 years ago and haven't come back yet. Fin whales used to be here. Fin whales used to be here, pilot whales and minke whales. Occasionally you'll see minke whale, but the fin whales haven't come back. Does this remind you of anything? This is Terry, my partner, has beautiful videos of the water. Amazing being water is. And the way the the water moves with these, it looks like the eyes that the First Nations use in their paintings.
Yeah.
To me, those are the eyes on the water. And if you have eyes under the water, that's when things get really exciting, because the surface of the water is so elusive. You just see our own reflection. But when you get under the water, it's a whole other world. Yeah, there's a favorite fish. Now, these could be anchovies and they could be herring. I'm not sure which, because they look really similar. They flash silver. This is one of the whale's favorite foods. And this is how they sometimes fish. This is lunge feeding. As you can see, there's, you can kind of see a little bit of sparkles. The herring will start to jump out. They'll come up. Everybody's seen this in David Attenborough's, in the state-of-the-art videos in Alaska, but this doesn't happen a lot. They don't feed like this a lot. And mostly it's really deep and they don't come to the surface. But this is a couple of whales. This is T-Rex and her friend. And they were lunge feeding here. And when they do that, everybody comes around, the gulls, all the birds, the otters, the sea lions, everybody comes in. It's fantastic to, to watch that happen.
A feast for the community.
A feast for the community, yes. And this is a little baby gray whale in the Baja, where we were guiding in Ojo de Liebre. We were guiding with a fishing co-op down there. And the gray whale story is an amazing story. You know, there's this story going around now that the orcas in the Mediterranean who are sinking sailboats because they're fascinated by their rudders was started by some older female who was hit by a boat. And this to me is, you know, it's another example of anthropomorphism. You know, we project what we would do onto other species, and it isn't what they do at all. If the orcas had wanted to get revenge on us, then they would have done that when we were killing them all.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and they haven't. So I think that basically they're just playing around. Those rudders, like if you've ever been under, I've cleaned the hull of my boat, and those rudders, they move around and they're like playthings. So once they take the rudder off, they're not interested anymore. So it's not like they're deliberately trying to hurt the boat or the people. They're just having fun. Whales just want to have fun. And this baby whale was so adorable. And just, you know, mom gray whale kept bringing, we're out in the pongas, and the mom gray whales, you know, they're educating their babies. They're training them to just, because they have to swim half an ocean in a few months. So it's whale school. They line them up and they train them, and they put them in the areas where there's current and they can develop their muscles. And then when, you know, but the moms get tired and they want a break. So mom comes over to the ponga with her baby and, you know, holds the baby up to the ponga to get petted, and then she goes off and has a little nap, right? A lot of times, because we're babysitting.
Sorry.
A ponga is in Mexico. The pongas are, they're about maybe 25 feet long, you know, and you can get 10, 12 people in there.
Oh,
and
it's
they're
a
open
boat.
boat. They're like runabouts. Oh. Yeah. And yeah.
So
and
they bring their
take people
babies
out.
to people to here amuse my kid while I go take a rest.
That's it. Yes. Yes, that's, you know, they use us. And they're also, you know, each one, of course, each whale has their own personality. There was one we used to call Jacuzzi, because she'd come around and she'd get under the boat. And when people were, you know, they'd all lean over to see her, and then she'd blow, and everybody'd get wet, and everybody'd shriek, and obviously she was amused by this.
Yeah.
She liked to blow people's hats off. So yeah, this is a little baby gray whale. Now, if you want to talk about revenge, the gray whales they came into this lagoon in Baja, Mexico, to have their babies in an area that they could get away from the orcas and other predators, sharks. But this Charles Scammon, the whaler, discovered this and brought all the whaling industry in, and they just decimated the gray whales. And they used to call the gray whales the mother's devilfish, because if the whalers in their little boats harpooned a baby, the mother would go after the boat, and they destroyed little boats and they destroyed big boats too. This is a mother protecting her young, and this, is when there's, I wouldn't call it revenge, it's defense.
Sure.
So there was a lot of fear on the part of the fishermen, the Mexican fishermen, the Mexican fishing community, of being out in their little boats fishing when the whaling had stopped and the gray whales came back to have their babies. The fishermen would avoid them, and they would run away from them. They were terrified of them. But one day in 1972, one of the fishermen, and I'm trying to remember his name, Pascal Mayoral. Anyway, he stayed, and a gray whale mother came to the boat, and he didn't run away. And she just stayed, and she looked at him, and he reached out his hand and he touched her. And she stayed, and they communed. And that was the beginning of the reconciliation of gray whales and humans. And since then, there have been a lot of friendly gray whales, and they come to the boats. They're wary. When we go out there every time, it would take quite a while for them to come around. But once they realized who you were and that you weren't going to hurt anybody, then the friendly whales would come around. And that was such a thrill for all the humans. And amusing for the whales, obviously. But this is reconciliation. This is what we need to be doing with all of the beings that we've harmed. Reconciliation with our own species is huge. And there's so much going on in the world with reconciliation with our own species. The ceremonies, the restorative justice, climate justice, the land back movements, all of these things, everything. The human race the human species, we have to, if we are going to evolve, we have to learn how to reconcile with what we've done in the past. I don't think we can bypass that. We need to move through that with each other as a species. And we also need to reconcile with the rest of the species on the planet. So if anybody wants to be doing that and wants to be doing ceremonies, we just did one down on the beach for the whales and for the beings in the Salish Sea. And a humpback whale came by. That was really nice. And a seal was watching the whole ceremony. Seals are so curious. And yeah, so that was really wonderful.
It sounds like, Jude, how wonderful. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Jude. This is really, really important. The reconciliation between species is as important as it is between nations and between people in our communities. We're so afraid of each other and of new experiences. You know, and our world is so full of bounty, of new experiences, and we are protecting ourselves way too much. You know, that's what life is for, I think, is for experiencing. And in our own four walls, there is, this is a lovely place to be. I'm to experience your life through this Zoomosphere is such a treasure. Thank you so much.
Mm, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Can you see me on and the gallery on the screen, or should I stop sharing my screen now?
Oh, well, you can stop sharing if you're done. That would be lovely. Then we get to see you more. There you are. There you are. Thank you so much for those beautiful pictures.
I just tried to put something together last night. We do mostly video, and those videos are on the Welcoming Whales website, and there's so much more, so much more. Still photos just don't get the life, but
I understand, and the bandwidth needs to be. We don't have a choice, but we do have a choice of who we listen to. And I see Diana has a question. Let's listen to her for a sec. Come on in, Diana.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I find this fascinating, Jude. Thank you very much. What I wanted to ask is, can you give us an idea of what your life is like? I mean, what are you living on a sailboat, are you? Or
no,
and then
no,
my
actually,
other question would be, how did you get to this?
okay.
Oh,
Well, the short answers. I will do the short answers. You can see this is where I live, and I don't know if you can hear all the wonderful birds, but they're here. So I'm living up on a ridge. I don't live on the ocean, but there's a path I can hike down in about 25 minutes to the rocks, yeah, to the ocean. The little sailboat we go out in when we can. It's very it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to be out there in a little boat, because you have to it's like camping on the water. We don't have a luxury ship. So it's got an ice box, it's got a composting toilet, it's got you know, and we're trying to, when we're around the whales and there's other boats around, I'm the one who's helming the boat and trying to get my partner in a good position so that he can video, and the boat wants to sail. And yeah, so it's I'm listening to the underwater, what's happening underwater in the hydrophone. And this is another thing, is sound and the ocean. So we're putting together some, hopefully we can get these out in documentary form so that other people can have these experiences that we're having. What I hear when I put the hydrophone down in the water is mostly a lot of noise, a lot of human noise, boat noise. And, you know, and I'm wondering how that interferes with the whales' communication. So sound travels 4 times as fast, 4.5 times as fast in the water. The whales communicate with sound below what we can hear a lot of the time. Although you've all heard whale song, I can play you some, but that's going on, but also communications below what we can hear, below our hearing. And that's quite interesting. Anyway, how did I get here? I started off as a musician, and then moved to the sunshine. When I moved to the Sunshine Coast, it was nature, to be closer to the natural world than I was in the city in Vancouver. And I just wanted to be a part of nature again, just be one of the one of the participants in the natural world. So I learned a lot from, I studied with a medicine woman when I was younger, when I lived in Toronto. And if anybody knows the Wilderness Awareness School, it's in Duval, Washington. And that's a wonderful place to become a neighbor again, a part of nature. And then just being open to what was happening to the natural world and noticing the whales come back. And when we started on this journey to bring the whales world to other people, it's just, I can't even say what's happened since then. It's not up to me anymore. It's just, I just go wherever it's happening. It's wherever it opens up. And I can't really say any more than that. I don't want to project or put some kind of magical take on this, perspective on this. It's just being open to the universe and open to the rest of nature.
I want to come in and say how magical it has been being a friend of Jude, because you know how I talk about the magic in ordinary moments, Mom. Well, Jude's guided by Mom. And she goes where Mom says she goes. And Jude, I have been so pleased with what I have seen. And Diana, yes, come on back in, come on.
I'm sorry, I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated. But you said you were a musician. I assume you still are a musician. What instrument did you play?
I play whatever I can. Now I'm part of an improvising choir. We make all kinds of weird sounds. We have a lot of fun together.
And do you ever have you ever tried playing anything to the whales?
Well,
I know
that
cows, they will listen.
Yes,
the didgeridoo, sorry, yes.
Some of them are interested in the didgeridoo and some of them aren't. I have played like, wind instruments. I haven't tried to take a piano out on the sailboat yet, or particularly my guitar. Other people have played, guitar like through underwater speakers and things like that. But I play a lot of instruments and a lot of percussion instruments, guitar, piano, but with the whales, I've mostly played that plastic PVC pipe because it's waterproof and I can take it on the boat and I can get it close to the water where they can hear better.
That's wonderful. I see Kate. Come on in, Kate. I see your hand.
Well, I just wanted to comment on, I understand this whale is returning to the Salish Sea. What do they call him? Tokahee? He's been in Florida. So I wondered if you were familiar with that story and thought it might be a boundary buster on, just the familyness of them. I understand that they're part of an L pod over there and the behavior of the whales is already shifting. Are you familiar with this story and what do you know?
I've heard about this story. L pod, that sounds like the southern residents. So yes, I have heard something about it. I don't know what's happening now. Do you? Those are orcas we're talking. I'm mostly familiar with the humpbacks in our area, but the orcas do come around, and I have, recorded them and seen them. But the southern residents don't come to our area very often. The northern residents more. Although the southern residents haven't. The northern and the southern do come together in these giant pods every once in a while.
Well, it's my understanding that it's a very old whale that has been in captivity for like 50 years and in this little pen, doing its tricks at some aquarium place in Florida, and I can't tell you his name, maybe Indianapolis Colts, a football player, has put the money up, and they are going to transport, they're hoping to have her back there by Thanksgiving. And so I know just one grandmother who lives over there who's very into this. So I hear it from her. You know, Eileen Smoke is her name. And she talks about, like I said, these behavior changes, and so many prayers bring so many tribes together to return this whale. And that probably some of the whales still remember. It's, you know, like Granny is one of the whale. This is about all I know of the story, is just bits and pieces, but I think that to see the behavior of what happens with the creatures when they return this old whale will be very interesting.
Yeah, especially if this whale was taken as a baby. And who might remember her? But if she still speaks her dialect, language is so important. If she still speaks her language, she'll be able to communicate.
Yeah, and without communication, we're lost. We're sunk, aren't we? Yeah. I see Susan. Come on in, Susan. Talk to us.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jude. Thank you so much for the lovely presentation and bringing us closer to our whale relations. I've had one opportunity to go whale watching in Cape Cod a few years ago, and it was truly wonderful and amazing. And one thing I did notice, the folks on the boat, every time a whale would do a breach or a slap or bring up the fin, whatever, everyone on the boat responded so much. And I really wondered if in that setting, maybe some of the whales that were choosing to be there were enjoying being part of that game, you know, that they really, you know, I didn't see them feeding them fish or anything to bring them up by the boats, and we went out looking for them. But it was kind of nice to see that there seemed to be some reciprocity. And I love that. But when you talk about not all the whales are interested, or I wonder how much we have in common with them in terms of plenty of human beings care about one thing, don't care about another thing. Plenty of human beings are being desensitized to everything in the world. And we've given up. We don't want to communicate with others anymore. I wonder, and then physically we're being affected by toxicity, et cetera. I'm starting to realize we can't put the whales or anybody else aside in their little compartment saying, well, this is what they do and this is how they are. They're probably an evolution too. I don't understand it. We have ways of understanding what my revolution is about, perhaps, but I don't know why this is important, but I think there's something about really recognizing it's not that just that we're killing whales or killing other beings, which is obviously something we have to learn to not do, to change, but they are really going through their own personal evolution. And I think us respecting and loving that is just a step on the path to all of us being better, the whole world being better. But it was good to hear, for me to hear, you know, oh yeah, just because he's a whale doesn't mean he wants to come see me. That's that romantic thing, you know. So I appreciate that input. Thank you.
Thank you. And what you've said is so important. This is the main thing that I would like to say to the world is, you know, we tend to talk about the whales, the bears. I'm scared of bears. Which bear? Which bear are you afraid of? Which whale? I heard a great story from an Indigenous elder who was talking about being at a land management, or no, it was once again, I think it was the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which we call the Department of Fish Obituaries because they manage everything into extinction. So what they were talking about was moving the sturgeon fish, the sturgeon, which can grow really big, into another lake. I don't know why, but so one of the elders said, well, who talked to the sturgeon? Who asked the sturgeon? And the person didn't know. And then she said, and which sturgeon did they talk to? This is what we've lost, this relationship, this kind of relationship. And we need to ask the other beings, because they have their own path, they have their own destinies, and they have a right to choose them. And everybody here on Earth is working to deal with the changes that we've brought on with climate change. We think humans are the ones that are going to save the world. That's another, you know, hubris from us. Microbes might be the ones to save the world, actually. But, you know, we don't know. We have to manage us. And that's not everybody else.
Yes, Stan.
Yeah,
Come
we
on.
had the tree whisperers on yesterday, and they really were very strong about when you're going to try to work with the trees, you have to ask their permission. And it was very sweet to hear the passion in her name. I've forgotten the names, but she was so angry that people would even consider trying to do something to a tree without asking its permission. Am I right? It was like she was very emotional about how that was talked about.
That was on Humanity Rising, and Jim, and it was Dr. Jim, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten as well. You know, the memory gets shorter with the amount of input that we get, I think.
Yeah, it was only a day or two ago.
Yeah, but her message, their message was very clear. We do need to ask permission, and where I extrapolated that out to is my awareness of the arrogance of humanity in you know, the science that we have embraced with our whole beingness has made us drop our compassion and our respect for other beings. Now, Susan, I see your hand up. Is that again? Come on in.
Thank you. Yes. First, I just think this whole thing of asking permission and like paying attention to other beings. The human race is just still kind of in a learning or relearning how to do that for anything. So, you know, the fact that we have so much power and so little ability of that, that's where the scariness comes. We can do so much damage. But I wanted to ask Judith, if you talked about taking classes and trying to learn to communicate telepathically, and I wonder how much you accomplished, and do you communicate with the ocean beings, the sea beings, and in what way, and any experiences you may have had, or anything you want to say about that? I'd be curious.
Okay, this is a really deep question. It's because, you know, when you talk about science and how we've gone down this path away from our intuition, our intuitive knowing, not everyone in the world has, and other cultures still honor and keep that part of their humanness. And the indigenous cultures, you know, but there's cultures honoring ancestors. There's the indigenous cultures have held that for us, our intuitive relationship with the rest of nature, with the spirit beings, with the ancestors, which Western industrial culture and post-industrial culture has denied. So that part of ourselves, which is part of being human, I feel has been perverted because we're still being run by our emotions. You know, CEOs of these big companies are still consulting their astrologers and their whatever. You know, we're still being run by our emotional selves, but that's been perverted because it's not recognized, it's not honored, we're not doing the ceremonies, we're not keeping each other accountable on that side of our humanness. And it's important to keep each other accountable and not get lost in the romantic fantasy of nature or other beings or spirit beings, but balance that. You know, we have the yin and the yang. We have, each contains the other. That's a really amazing symbol. And that's where we need to balance the intuitive with the analytical and have them create that sacred space. But we need to honor each. It's not like we've both have suffered from the denying of the intuitive. If we're, all I can say about exploring the intuitive space is, and trying to communicate with whales and other beings, you know, is it's been a journey and it continues to be a journey. It's very joyful and it's very humbling and it's fun and it's hilarious because, you know, I'm trying to communicate, and, you know, the whale or the hummingbird or the squirrel is just like not, it doesn't seem to be interested at all. So I've had some, I feel connected in my heart, of course, and occasionally something will happen. But if there's a woman who's started in the University of Saskatchewan here to do actual studies about communication, telepathic communication with other beings. And she's doing that as an academic. They've got academic courses, they've got people who are setting up kind of experiments to test that. And that's going to be really interesting. That's going to be really interesting. There was just a multi-species symposium where there were Indigenous elders and animal communicators, interspecies communicators, and academics. And that was a very interesting coming together. There was an Indigenous elder there who has put together a plan for land management and negotiations, which includes the other species. There is a chair for the other species. And he's really interested in having interspecies communicators there to bring the voices in of the other species. So it's going to be really interesting what happens with, we need to demand that of all of our legislation now. All right, if especially, you know, who's going to be affected and bring their voices in. I can't say for sure whether I get any messages directly. You know, all I feel is this real love and heart connection with the whales and with other beings. So I'll keep you posted. That's the journey. I'm still on it. And I'm at the beginning of that journey. You know, other people are further on, but everybody, you know, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of meditation and clearing your space so that you can discern what is coming from my monkey mind and what is real communication. And that is a practice.
Thank you so much, Jude. Absolutely. I see, Diana, you got your hand up, but you know, I'm going to ask Northwest Permaculture to come in first. If you don't
Probably our
mind.
friend Julie.
And Stan, I know you have a video queued up
Mhm.
for Jude, and I'm looking forward to that. But please come and talk to us.
Julie.
Yeah, feel free to
You
change
are.
my name. I'm on a phone. It's not so easy.
Oh, I know
yeah.
you. Hey, Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Wolf. Anyway, the timing is interesting. As Shannon and Stan know, I don't often come to these, and it just seems like a week ago came to one. But the timing is interesting because I just had a conversation with one of my homeowners association architectural committee covenant update committee, CCNR update committee people, about how we probably should ask the beaver what bothers them, before we assume that long docks are better than short docks, or better than long docks, or replacing an old dock or whatever. Anyways, conflicts going on in the human world around our lake, and a concern about disturbing the beavers to the point that we would lose our dam and therefore lose our lake. And literally I had this conversation, and I went, and if you don't want to, if you think that's too woo-woo, I'm sure we could get, ecological experts that would agree with whatever the beaver would say, or whatever the human channel for the beaver's voice would say. Anyway, so I'm really interested in, what the salmon here, it's like, the humans have put the salmons against the beavers. If you can imagine clogged culverts where humans are imagining salmon can't get through. I would love to have a resource, and I'm wondering where to go, and some of the things that Jude's mentioned about a council, interspecies council, and I'd really seriously like to get in touch with some of these people. I've meditated all my life, but I can't say that I can articulate or even know the difference between my own monkey mind and I haven't attempted interspecies communication or communications with these beautiful friends of mine, the trees. But anyway, if anyone has any contact information or website or whatever, I'm seriously thinking maybe I should reach out to interspecies communicators. Thanks.
Great. I'll give Stan and you that information about what's the multi-species symposium, and if people are interested. There's lots of opportunity to learn from others now. I mean, it's just exploding, really. So there's lots of opportunity to learn. But go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to say that there is a real awareness of this coming up, and the tree whisperers were Dr. Jim Conroy and Basha Alexander, and they're part of the Biobalia school, Biobalia Institute school, and there they are. Thank you, Stan. And they talk about the trees being confused at this point in time, like individuals are in the human species. And by helping them to make the first step and perhaps the second step, they can sort themselves out and thrive. And so it's almost like a therapist. And the thought that humans could help the trees become more coherent in themselves and in their ecosystem, and actually help them thrive. I mean, from my perspective, isn't that one of the abilities that humans have inherent in them? The gardening of the cultivation of coherence in our world. And so I really encourage this. And Jude, I look forward to getting your links. And if you know the name of that scientist who's doing the science part of it, I would really like to include that in a follow-up email to at least the chat people. But in Mighty Networks with the 99 days, I think would be also a very good place to put that follow-up email and the link to this. And I know that we're on to 2 hours now, and it's amazingly wonderful to spend this time. And Diane, I want to let you come on in, please.
Thanks, Shannon. Just quickly, because basically my question was very similar to what has just been said. The professor in Saskatchewan University, did you say, Jude, who was setting up these courses or whatever? I'd be really interested in knowing her name. And then the person you said who initially you started with, Anna, she's South African, I believe. And she actually didn't realize she had this communication until she was about 21 years old or something like that. I mean, if you have a link for her, I know my daughter had something at Schumacher College in England. She had something to do with that there. But I've looked for her recently and I haven't really come up with anything that I've appreciated. So if you've got anything like that, I really appreciate it. And the heart, the feeling in the heart is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Susan, come on in, and then we'll give Jude the last word.
Okay, thank you. When you mentioned the scientific studies being done and we as humans seem to need at this point in our evolution validation that something is okay by getting what we call scientific proof, or whatever falls within the paradigm that we're buying into right now. So I think those kind of studies, one of the benefits is that they're giving people permission to accept the possibility and maybe get in touch with their own ability to do it. And there's something that I've participated in sometimes and have seen in different settings called the Council of All Beings. And I just looked it up. I guess Joanna Macy was the one who got that going. I don't know, but even people who aren't used to thinking in terms of becoming or representing or communicating with someone or something else, when you're given the responsibility to represent that being in the council, and just let yourself do it the best you can, it's kind of surprising what can come through. I think we're just needing to wake up to our ability to do that. I don't think it's probably beyond us intrinsically. I think so. It's not just animal communicators or telepathic communicators are on the path further ahead, and they can help guide us and they can help us keep things moving. But I don't want us to depend. I don't think it's necessary to depend on someone else to do this. Like you said, the indigenous cultures, the elders have kept this heart communication with nature. They've maintained that, and we've lost it. We just need to relearn it, I think. I hope. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I would totally agree with that, Susan. And so then just to end this is we're all on this journey together, and all of us. Oh, Stanley, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to show or try to show one of your videos. It shouldn't take very long. It's right. I have it all set up.
Sure.
Let's see if it'll work. I don't know.
Okay.
Is that okay? Should I do that now?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sure.
Well, let's see what happens. Did I mess up? Let's see. I have other things that I brought to the front.
And while
including-
you're doing that, I'm just going to say how much I have appreciated this and recording a recording seems wrong to me. And yet it's a wonderful thing, and I'm really, really glad. And maybe we can drop that link into the chat as well, Stan.
Of course, yes.
And then while it's on, maybe we can stop the recording.
Well, let's see, how well is it coming across for us to see it, or are you
I can
seeing
see
them?
it. I can't hear it though.
Did I turn on sound? I may not have. Let's
Oh,
stop
look at
sharing.
it. Oh,
Hold on a second. I didn't share properly. Video, share sound, and optimize for video
All
and
right.
share.
There we
Oh,
go.
oh, wait a minute.
And while you're doing that, I just want to
Yes.
say that
Okay, is it on now?
you-
yeah.
Okay. And it does have ocean sound.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
And I think,
Jude, I hope you can wait. We want to hear your last words.
okay, I guess I'll put it in the chat. Anybody can watch this. It's on Jude's website.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Mhm.
we're going to send the chat to people. Will attach that file, a link to that file when the file for the recording goes out as well. And Jude, this has been so good. I really appreciate it. And I do encourage everyone to add what they know to the recording when it comes out. And let's have some vibrant conversation between our species. So we can reach out to other species together and have a coherent future.
Mhm.
Come on in, Jude.
Yes. I just say yes. We were all indigenous. We are all indigenous to this earth, to Gaia. We were all indigenous as children. We just lost our abilities. We're all born with these abilities. And we're all born, children love animals. Children love the wind and all of nature. And we just need to be. Just need to be.
We have been trained so severely throughout our lives, and it is changing. And I don't know how fast it's going to change. I think it needs to change fast. And we have been blown in the vagaries of the winds of change. And there's going to be a lot more change. And so flexibility is really required. And so we will be like the willow and be like the whales and open our hearts to the possible future that holds the very best for all it is. I thank you all for being a part of my reality. Together we sparkle so bright. Thank you so much. Thank you, Stan. You can close the recording now.